On March 7, 2020, a seemingly ordinary takeoff routine quickly turned into a nightmare, endangering 447 lives on 2 planes. An Air Canada Boeing 777 bound for Halifax taxied down the runway 06L. An Embraer ERJ190 bound for Denver had been cleared to take off moments earlier on that same runway. It was running, ready for the climb, when a bird strike forced the plane to reject takeoff. Now, Embraer ERJ190 was decelerating from a speed of 135 knots. As normal, the E190 crew radioed the tower to advise of the problem and to inform them that they had rejected the takeoff. However, at precisely the same moment, the crew of the 777 radioed the tower too to acknowledge their takeoff clearance prior to beginning their takeoff roll. No one knew that the ERJ190 was still on the runway, and chaos quickly ensued. The Boeing 777 crew accelerated to 110 knots. Engines were screaming at full throttle, and liftoff was just moments away. Then the unimaginable came into focus. The ERJ-190 was right in their path. A heart-stopping realization set in. The plane ahead of them wasn't taking off, and there wasn't enough room to safely lift off. Meanwhile, the air controller didn't pay attention to the fact that Embraer ERJ-190 was still there and decelerating. For them, the flight should have already been mid-air, so they didn't think much about monitoring them. In a split-second decision, the Boeing's pilot slammed on the brakes as the massive jet fought against the relentless laws of momentum. Reverse thrust roared to life, every second stretching unbearably. The speed had already gotten to 133 knots. The aircraft screeched to a halt, with disaster averted by mere seconds. A collision had been narrowly avoided, but the terrifying reality left both crews and air traffic controllers in shock. Though the incident ended without injuries or damage, it sparked an immediate investigation. Questions arose about procedural lapses, communication breakdowns, and how such a close call could happen at one of Canada's busiest airports. This was a chilling reminder of the fine margins that defined aviation safety. But what actually led to this near tragedy? And why did the air control not know about an aborted takeoff? This gripping story is just the beginning. Subscribe now to uncover more high-stakes moments in aviation history. Join us as we delve into the timeline, the decisions, and the aftermath of this dramatic near-miss. On March 7, 2020, the weather was clear at Toronto Pearson International Airport. Light winds and good visibility allowed the air control to pass the visual flight rating for both flights. The control tower at Toronto Pearson International Airport is located right in the middle of the airport. That day, out of 9 watch positions, only 4 were filled. That led to a single air controller monitoring every touchdown and takeoff on every runway. The situation wasn't ideal for concentration, but with the guidance and control systems of the tower, the controller should have been able to make things go smoothly. Let's walk through what happened step by step to see how this terrifying incident unfolded. The controller, a highly experienced individual, planned to use visual separation procedures for the departures of both aircraft, relying on his judgment to maintain rapid operational flow. Drawing from his knowledge and prior experience, the controller anticipated the Embraer 190 would become airborne before the Boeing 777 began its takeoff roll. He based this on several cues: the Embraer's apparent speed nearing rotation, its position past the expected liftoff point, and the belief that rejected takeoffs at high speeds were exceedingly rare. However, the Embraer 190 encountered a bird strike while traveling at 139 knots, just under its V1 speed of 146 knots.
So 6 reporting.
Yep, thanks. 1037, I check you aborted.
I did make the call, but I guess you didn't hear it, Air Canada 1037.
Did not hear it. 606, you okay?
Yeah, we're good. We can taxi off the runway.
Canada 606, the left off there, and do you have hot brakes or anything?
Stand by. Could be okay on the brakes. Stand by.
The captain immediately initiated a rejected takeoff. The first officer, adhering to company protocol, transmitted a radio call to report the rejected takeoff, completing the sequence in about 5 seconds. At nearly the same moment, the controller cleared the Boeing 777 for takeoff, and the first officer of the 777 began reading back the clearance. Simultaneous radio transmission, initiated within 0.1 seconds of each other, resulted in both messages being masked a common hazard in aviation. Neither the controller nor the 777 crew was alerted to the Embraer's rejected takeoff due to this overlap. Visual cues indicating the Embraer's deceleration were present, its movement on the runway, and the declining speed data displayed on the controller screen. However, the North Tower's layout and visual obstructions made continuous monitoring challenging. The controller was required to turn 180 degrees multiple times to monitor both the runways and his workstation. The visual and systemic limitations at the control position compounded the oversight, as the controller continued to focus on other tasks, believing the Embraer had successfully rotated for takeoff. After the Embraer 190's rejected takeoff and the simultaneous transmission issue, the Boeing 777 crew, unaware of the conflict, began their takeoff roll. The Embraer 190's transponder, designed to switch to airborne status after reaching speeds above 50 knots, inaccurately transmitted the aircraft was in the air. This incorrect status persisted for nearly a minute, misleading both air traffic control and the systems monitoring the runway. A critical safety system, the Runway Incursion Monitoring and Collision Avoidance System, RIMCAS, failed to detect the danger accurately. It relied on the erroneous transponder data, which indicated both aircraft were airborne, delaying the issuance of an alert. The Boeing 777 crew spotted the Embraer 190 on the runway and believed it was about to take off, consistent with the controller's initial assessment. However, as they accelerated, it became apparent that the smaller jet was decelerating rather than rotating for departure. Recognizing the danger, the Boeing 777 crew promptly initiated a high-speed rejected takeoff. They decelerated rapidly, avoiding a collision with the Embraer 190. The incident brought into focus the systemic shortcomings in communication protocols, visual monitoring from the control tower, and reliance on automated systems like RIMCAS, which failed under these unique circumstances. At the closest point, the distance between Air Canada Boeing 777 and the Embraer 190 was approximately 5,000 feet, a mere 1.5 kilometers. The investigation into the March 7, 2020 near collision at Toronto Pearson Airport highlighted several key issues. The most critical problem was the overlap of radio calls from both the Air Canada Boeing 777 and the Embraer E190. This caused a communication breakdown, leaving air traffic control unaware that the Embraer had rejected its takeoff. As a result, the controller cleared the Boeing 777 for takeoff without knowing the runway was not clear. Another factor was the failure of the Runway Incursion Monitoring and Collision Avoidance System, or RIMCAS. This system relies on data from aircraft transponders, and the Embraer's transponder mistakenly indicated the aircraft was airborne, even though it was still on the runway. This failure delayed an alert that could have warned the Boeing crew of the danger. Additionally, the layout of the control tower made it difficult for the controller to monitor both runways effectively. The controller had to turn 180 degrees to watch each runway, which led to gaps in surveillance. The controller's judgment was based on the assumption that the Embraer was already airborne, and this assumption was wrong. Fortunately, the Boeing 777 crew acted quickly when they noticed the Embraer was still on the runway. They initiated a high-speed rejected takeoff and avoided a collision by mere seconds. The investigation found that communication lapses combined with the failure of safety systems led to a near tragedy. As a result, the investigation recommended improvements in communication systems, better monitoring, and enhanced training for controllers. The incident was a reminder of how critical small details are in aviation safety. What do you think could have prevented this close call? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.